Hello, friends. I'm Paul Estabrooks. Today I want to tell you the story which I call a God incidence. Many people would call it a coincidence, but never could be when you hear it. It's a God incidence. It began in the era called the Cultural Revolution in China. We've talked about that in the last couple of videos. Beginning in 1965, an era began in China that Mao Zedong sent the young people on the rampage throughout the country, and it was a horrible period. It set the country back in incredible ways. The worst of it was for the first 5 years or so, and by the early 1970s, I think Mao was already beginning to wish he hadn't done this, and he began to reach out to other countries. China was totally closed at this point. He invited Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, to come and visit, and Trudeau established diplomatic relations with China that very year. Later in that year, 1972, Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger visited from the USA. Now, they did not establish diplomatic relations until late 1979. So Canada had a special relationship, and it was to be celebrated with friendship tours. Chinese people coming to Canada and Canadian people going to visit China. Well, Terry Madison, my colleague, was one of the ones invited to be the photojournalist that he was as part of the group coming from Canada to visit China in 1973. He took incredible pictures of this country, as I did later in 1977 when I had a chance to do the same thing. Terry took one picture that was notable. In the bus, as he traveled, he saw 5 young ladies standing outside the bus window. They were high schoolers with red armbands on their left arm, indicating that they were Red Guards. And he quickly snapped the picture, had no time to frame it and make it a beautiful shot as he was so capable of doing. He took that picture and later framed it. And that picture, when he joined Open Doors Asia in the late 1970s, a year before I did, hung it on the wall of the lobby, the front lobby, at the Open Doors office in Manila. And when I joined a year later, we would have devotions in that room. And every morning someone would point to that picture and say, those 5 young ladies represent the youth of China. They need our prayers. So we would pray for those 5 gals and for the young people that they represented many, 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 many times. In 1980, one of the colleagues at the office was Dr. Everett Boyce. Everett and his wife Faith had come to the Philippines years earlier with FEBC also, but as teachers at Faith Academy. His doctorate was in education, but he became a trainer for Open Doors for years. In fact, he was the forerunner of Standing Strong Through the Storm, today's major document for training in Open Doors that's now in 48 languages. Dr. Boyce went home to the United States from the Philippines in early 1980. He joined international students and began ministering among students in the U.S. for the rest of his life. One night he was going home from work. Now, they lived in Colorado, and he was heading home on a Friday evening, and he saw a car at the side of the road with 3 young Chinese, what looked to be students, standing beside it, quite forlorn. The car had blown a transmission and it wasn't going anywhere, and he stopped to help them, and these kids had no resources. They were graduate students from a university in Washington State on a vacation trip in Colorado, and he took them home for the weekend. He called all his Christian friends, and they raised enough money to repair that transmission, about $1,300. And the young couple were very happy. There were 3 of them in the group. Here's their picture. Kathy is in the middle. She's the key of the story. And on her left is her fiancé, John, and on her right is her brother, Lee. These 3 young people spent the weekend with the Boyces. They went to church on Sunday. They learned a lot about American culture that they didn't know, especially Christian culture. And on Sunday afternoon, before their car was repaired on Monday, the last day that they had a full day with Everett and Faith, Everett pulled out his projector and said, "I've taken lots of slides of China on my 2 trips into the country. You'd probably enjoy seeing them." And so he began to show them his pictures. He had Terry's picture as one of those in the presentation that he often showed. And when that picture came up, Kathy just went berserk. She said, "How do you have my picture? And there's Mei Ling, my best friend." And she named the other 3 gals that were in the group. Well, Ev was astounded. How would he ever have guessed that she was one of the gals in this picture? And for the rest of the day, he and his wife Faith shared their faith with Kathy and John and Lee. And before that night was over, Kathy and John committed their life to follow Jesus. Lee was interested, but not yet ready to make a decision of faith like that. They went home to Washington State on Monday night, and very soon they transferred to a university in Colorado because they wanted to live close to the Boyces. And John phoned Everett very soon after getting back to Washington State and said, "Everett, I need a new Bible because the one you gave us, Kathy is always reading it and I can never get a hold of it." And so Everett sent John a new Bible. That young couple finished their doctorates at university in Colorado and returned to China. Today, they are serving Jesus in China. What a God incident that Kathy would be the girl in the picture and would be an answer to prayer of many, many people over the years as they've seen that picture. A God incident reminds us that we are part of God's wise and caring plan, no matter how inscrutable that plan may appear to human eyes.